I'll never forget when Gabriel looked at me and said, "This is crazy, right?" His first son had just been born. He'd been in the labour room for hours. He'd been anticipating this moment for what felt like his whole life. He said, "I looked at him and I felt nothing. Not joy, not fear, not relief, just nothing. Blank, numb, like I wasn't really there." And then he looked at me and asked quietly, "What's wrong with me?" If you've ever had moments like that, when something important is happening and you feel distant, flat, or unreal, this video isn't about what's wrong with you, it's about what your nervous system learned to do. And if you want to explore the skills that help the nervous system come back online gently, at the pace it can tolerate, you can find them at PsycheVita.com and in the PsycheVita app. I'm Dr. Tony Weston, psychotherapist, executive coach, and award-winning researcher. I work with people whose systems didn't collapse into panic when life became overwhelming. They adapted by switching off. In this video, I want to show you 3 things. What numbness and dissociation are really doing. Why insight and stimulation so often fail. And how feeling returns safely without forcing. What the signal is really saying. This is about skill 8.2, Somatic Attunement. Numbness isn't emptiness, it's distance. When fight or flight don't work, when there's no way out, the nervous system has another option. It reduces contact. Sensation dulls. Emotion fades. Awareness pulls back. This isn't avoidance, it's protection. For many people, this pattern was learned early, before words, before memory, when intense states had to be endured alone. The body learned a simple rule. If I feel less, I survive. Somatic attunement doesn't ask you to feel more. It asks something safer. Can you notice what's still here without demanding anything else? Feeling returns through safety, not pressure. Why emotion was too much. This is about skill 1.2, adaptive emotional processing. Dissociation develops when emotion was once too intense, too fast, too lonely. When distress wasn't met, accompanied, or contained, the system did something intelligent. It shut emotion down. That's why people often say, "I know what I should feel, but I don't." And why stimulation, work, exercise, scrolling, even intense therapy can make numbness worse. Adaptive emotional processing isn't about catharsis. It's about restoring the ability to feel a little and stop. A pulse, not a flood. Emotion returns in fragments, pauses, and gentle waves. When people try to force feeling back, the system retreats again. Developmental origins, how numbness gets learned. Developmentally, emotional regulation is not something a baby can do alone. In early life, regulation is an adult responsibility. A caregiver notices distress, moves toward it, and helps settle it. Through thousands of repetitions, the baby learns, when things get intense, I don't face it alone. As development progresses, regulation becomes shared. First co-regulation, then gradually supported self-regulation. And even in adulthood, none of us ever outgrow this entirely. We all still need co-regulation at times. Familiar example is what happens when new parents become overwhelmed in the first weeks after a baby is born. Ideally, a grandparent steps in. Not because the parents are failing, but because regulation has always been relational. Support flows across generations. When this process doesn't happen through neglect, emotional absence, inconsistency, chronic overwhelm, or intergenerational trauma, it's rarely because someone chose badly. Often it's because no one ever showed them that this was the job. If you were never regulated, you don't know how to offer regulation. This is how patterns repeat quietly across generations. Sometimes this later appears in family stories. You were such a good baby. You never cried. You never made a fuss. That's often said warmly, but developmentally, it can describe a system that learned early not to signal. Not because it was easy, but because nothing came when it did. Over time, that adaptation becomes procedural. Feeling less is safer than needing more. Years later, the same system may respond to intensity, even joyful intensity, by switching off. The growth edge. Healthy self-worth. This is about skill 3.4. Healthy self-worth. When numbness becomes chronic, it's often supported by a quiet rule. My inner experience doesn't really matter. Worth, developmentally, doesn't emerge from within. It forms through being responded to, being noticed, being prioritized, being treated as significant. In many modern contexts, attention is fragmented. Parents may be physically present, but psychologically elsewhere, exhausted, distracted, pulled by demands, devices, or their own unresolved histories. This doesn't require bad intent to have an impact. When attention is consistently diverted outward, a child may learn, my inner world isn't compelling enough to hold another mind. Healthy self-worth doesn't return through positivity or self-esteem exercises. It develops when internal experience is allowed to matter again, even when it's quiet, flat, slow, or inconvenient. For people who dissociate, learning that nothing is still something and that it deserves care is often the turning point. That's not indulgence, it's delayed development finally being met. Over the next week, I suggest you notice moments of numbness without trying to change them. You can treat them as signals, not problems. You can ask yourself quietly, what might my system be protecting me from right now? Nothing more is required. Numbness isn't a failure to heal. It's a sign your system learned how to survive. With the right pacing, feeling doesn't have to be forced. It can return. If you want to explore these capacities more deeply, you'll find them at PsycheVita.com and on the app. You're not broken. You adapted, and you can adapt again.